Hello, good morning, and welcome to this YouTube Live. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you are watching live, most of you probably will be watching the replay. Welcome. Before I start, if you have any questions or comments, whether you're watching the live or the replay, please don't hesitate to drop a comment or a question below this video, and I will respond. So I just want to say that up front. So welcome, my name is Anuska Taylor. I haven't done a live in quite some time, and I really like doing lives, actually. It's a different kind of energy to doing recorded videos. So I wanted to talk about this topic because I feel like it's quite an important topic and really the essence of my work. So I'm an executive voice coach, started my life as a singing teacher, still do teach some singing, but primarily now work with professionals, corporate people who really rely on their speaking voice for their business or career, mainly because I really felt there was this gap in what was out there. Public speaking training, presentation skills training really doesn't address the voice in any meaningful, deep way. So there was, for me, this gap for professionals. It's like, well, I know how to present, but my voice isn't functioning. So that's really the essence of my work. I also bring in the work of Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. So not in a therapeutic clinical model, but very much in a coaching model about really potential and accessing your true self, your true authentic voice, and really discovering who you really are. And for me, when you know who you really are, it is emanating through your voice. So before I start, I just want to share a quote from Maya Angelou. And I love this quote. And she says that words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning. So we know this to be true. Even if you don't know it to be true as a speaker, we know it to be true if you listen to singers. And there's probably a reason why you like listening to certain singers versus other singers, because they really infuse the music with such emotion. But it is the same with our speaking voice. Whether you don't identify with being a singer or not, your speaking voice is still part of your singing voice. And so I really want you to get that this is an essential aspect of becoming a more powerful, impactful speaker, because really we don't give our voice that much thought, time, or attention unless we have to. And in all honesty, if I didn't do what I did for a living, pre my training, learning to teach voice and training in all of this, I worked in the corporate world for a few years, and I didn't give my voice any thought either. So I'm just the same as everyone else. But I think now I've realized through this deeper work that I've done and all the training around vocal technique and vocal function, how important it really is. So we really do underestimate the power of our voice. And particularly for you, if you are leading a team or running your own business, or looking to pitch for investment or stand on stages at industry events, etc., your voice has the power to educate, to inspire, to motivate, to influence, to persuade, to transform, and essentially like move your audience, like really help them connect emotionally to something. And so your voice is incredibly powerful. And really, we're reading so much more than the words. And we know this to be true as well. You can have 5 people say exactly the same thing. One person will kind of leave you a bit cold, might be, that's great. Someone else, you'll just be compelled to listen to them. So we're reading in voices, we're really reading the energy, the quality, and the tone of the voice. And that's really more important than what you're saying, because it's almost like you could say anything, but if the voice is lacking in energy and clarity and expression, probably people aren't really going to listen to you, or unless they have to, of course. That's different. Sometimes we've all sat in meetings where we've got to make notes and pay attention, and the person speaking, that there's just no energy in their voice. So it's hard work. So, really, what I want to talk today about is why your voice matters so much. So, we're going to look at how we hold our voice back. I'm going to just get rid of this. We're going to look at how we hold our voice back. I'm then going to talk about how this impacts our voice, sort of physically, how it impacts our voice. Then I'm going to talk about why we hold our voice back, which is a big part of my work. And then finally, I'm going to share some of the ways you can begin to find more freedom in your voice and sort of really start to access what I would call your true voice. So let's talk about, first of all, why, sorry, not why, how we hold our voice back. So often when I'm working with clients and, well, really when I'm talking to anyone about their voice, what people don't really get is that your voice is a full body instrument. And it's not just the larynx in your throat, your whole body contributes to your voice. And so, if I was to summarize how we hold our voice back into one word, it would be tension. And Kristen Linklater, an eminent voice teacher, says tension murders vibration. And this is really essential to understand. So it's tension, particularly in the upper body. If you know you hold a lot of tension in your upper chest, in your shoulders, in your neck, in your jaw, in your lips, in your face, it's all going to contribute to what's possible with your voice. So, again, I'm going to share at the end what you can start to do about this. But first of all, just to start to think about your voice, it's a full body instrument. So even, even down to your hands, if you're like sitting in a meeting, like gripping a pen, the hand tension is going to sort of feed up the arm into the shoulders, into the neck. So we really want to start to see finding that more openness and that release through the body is going to make a significant difference to your voice. So that's the first thing. So tension is huge. And again, I could just do a whole video just on that, but I am going to talk about this at the end, how to work with it. So number two is how this impacts our voice. So you might be like, well, that's great. Well, I've got tension in my jaw, but who cares? It doesn't really impact my voice. And, it really does. And I think when you start to release the tension, then you realize how much it had been hindering your voice. Because sometimes we just get used to things being tight in our body. If we've always had, tight shoulders or a tight jaw, we don't know what we don't know. The body just compensates. We just get used to tension. But then it's only when we release it, we're like, oh, is it meant to feel this good? Is my voice meant to have this much freedom? So let's just talk about a few ways that this impacts the voice. So first of all, probably if there's a lot of tension in your system, in your vocal system, in your upper body, particularly your face, your jaw, your neck, your tongue, your lips, then you're going to have a hard time finding strength in your voice. So either, and when I say strength, I mean a freedom, like an openness and a freedom with the strength. So we tend to fall on one side of the camp or the other. I was trying to think of the right word. So either we might muscle into it, and so you might find that your voice has a lot of strain and press and force, and that's the only way you can get the voice out. But I wouldn't say that's strength. That's just muscling and tensing. That is tensing into the voice. The other side of the fence is you might just think your voice is weak. So either way, whether you're overly muscling into it or there's no muscle engagement really at all, you're not going to have a strong voice. Now, how this is impacted by tension is, in order for us to really have real power in our voice, like real strength, real ease with that strength, the vocal folds have to vibrate fully, cleanly, and efficiently. And if there's a lot of tension around the larynx or feeding into the larynx, so the voice box, they can't function freely and efficiently. They're not going to be able to vibrate fully, cleanly, and efficiently. And that is what is required for this effortless, powerful voice. So the second one is power, and strength and power for me are quite different. You could have a strong, quiet voice, or you could have a strong, loud voice. Now, strength and volume tend to go together, but they aren't mutually exclusive. So that's why I separate them out. So power, really your ability to project your voice without straining, without forcing, without pushing, or without relying on a mic. So again, when we think about what it takes to really get power in the voice, it's and how tension would impact that is if there is a lot of constriction through your throat, or your jaw is tight, so there's no space in your mouth, your instrument is really being squished and made very small, so you can't get the power in the sound. Even if there's a lot of tension in your chest as well, actually, I mean, this, as I say, it's a whole body thing, but if there's a lot of tension through your chest, then the breath can't flow freely and easily either. So what we're aiming for is this sort of free open channel. So when there's constriction in the throat, constriction through the chest, constriction through the jaw, the tongue, we're sort of shutting down these resonant cavities. And, even if you just think about this in terms of musical instruments, you think about a double bass versus a violin. Double bass, much bigger resonating chamber versus a violin, there's a bigger sound. So think about that in terms of the internal spaces in your body where the sound can resonate. So throat, mouth, nose. We want that as open as possible. Now, obviously, with the nose, we don't really have any control particularly over that in the same way. But the throat, openness of the throat, having space in the mouth is really important. And this actually, well, it kind of leads me on to these next two. But if your jaw is clamped down, or when you speak like this, there is no space. The sound can't be amplified. Not in the same way, anyway. So number three, so we've had strength in the voice, we've had power in the voice. Number three is expression. So meaning particularly with expression, how much animation, melody, sort of aliveness do you have in your voice? And that is normally more to do with intonation, modulation, pitch variation in the voice. Now, if you're not aware, in order to actually create different pitches in the voice, and I'm going to very much simplify this for the purposes of this video, your vocal folds have to stretch. So they go sort of long and thin to create high pitches, and then they shorten and thicken for lower pitches. So in order for that movement to happen, again, if there's a lot of constriction around your larynx because of your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, blah, 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 because it all feeds in. If you think about this as right in the middle here between the body and the head, you're not going to be able to access that freedom of movement, that agility in the voice. So the vocal folds really have to be able to sort of stretch and shorten, stretch and shorten to create those higher pitches. And so for a lot of people, they kind of get stuck in a certain pitch in their speaking voice, partly because they're just not used to moving their voice around. They don't warm their voice up. The vocal folds aren't used to moving. So there needs to be, and obviously in a more extreme end for singing, of course, we're going to be doing much higher pitches. But even for speaking, the more freedom the voice has, the more it can create these different pitches. And so that's why I say to clients, and I'm going to be talking about this at the end, you must warm your voice up, because it's getting blood flow to the larynx, but it's also stretching the vocal folds and getting them sort of into this movement, so that if you do want to be more animated and expressive and vary your pitch and intonate, then your voice is capable of doing it. But if you don't warm up and you live in a very, very narrow range when you speak, it's going to be very hard to suddenly become really expressive. So that's expression. And then the other one is clarity. So maybe you identify as someone that mumbles. People often ask you to repeat. Maybe you feel like, you mumble. Like, I know I mumble, and people tell me I mumble. So a big part of mumbling is that the articulators are not really working interdependently. A lot of the time, it's one that's doing most of the work. So by articulators, I mean the jaw, the tongue, and the lips primarily. There's others, but these are the ones we have control over moving. So what I see with a lot of people that mumble, the jaw's very tight. They don't really move their lips and they don't really move anything else. And so it's all like pulled back into the throat. There's no space. The sound can't come out. And part of that is because, again, the articulators are just not used to moving. They're just so tense. In the UK, we have this expression called stiff upper lip. And it's very interesting, like start to notice how many people's upper lips don't move when they speak. We want all the lip to move. You know, if we're just relying on the bottom lip, then the jaw is going to get more involved. Again, the jaw is not really designed to be used as much as it is for speech. It just tends to take over because it's the strongest muscle relative to its size. So notice, does my upper lip move? Can I get this kind of movement through my articulators? Again, I'm going to talk about this at the end, but I just wanted to show you whether it's strength, whether it's power, whether it's expression, whether it's clarity. If there is tension in your instrument in some way, in some shape or form, which, you know, we all hold tension. So, you know, this isn't to beat yourself up at all. But if you're holding tension, you're going to find it hard to access the fullness of your voice, the full freedom of your voice, the clarity, the expression. Now, number 3 is why we hold our voice back. And this is a big topic as well. These are all big topics, actually. And I'm trying to summarize them for you this morning. Again, if I was to summarize this into one word, it would be fear, which probably doesn't come as a surprise to you. So there's what we're conscious of, the conscious fears that we have, and then most of it's unconscious. So what they say, 5% of our mind is conscious, 95% is unconscious. So a lot of voice teachers and public speaking teachers will just focus on what we're conscious of. So just do this and just do that. But there's a reason why you're doing this in the first place. So you have to address the underlying root cause, because you're working with 95% of your mind, really, that doesn't want you to have the thing that you say you want. So let's just look at this very simply. So from a kind of conscious perspective, you know, if you are doing a public speaking engagement, maybe you've got to speak in a meeting or a presentation or a pitch, or even, it doesn't even have to be work related. Maybe you've got to have a really challenging conversation with a loved one, with a family member, with someone that you care about. And we've all been there, absolutely, including myself, many, many, many times. We feel the throat sort of constricting. We feel this tension, tightness in our chest, maybe in our stomach, in our throat, maybe the jaw gets really tight. So this is this kind of conscious fear that we're all kind of aware of. And we see very obviously how that impacts the voice. You know, we feel the voice kind of getting croaky, maybe shaking, maybe we get dry mouth, maybe our hands are shaking, like we've all been there. So that's this kind of conscious fear that we're aware of. And to some extent, we can control that. You know, certainly if you do some voice exercises, you do some breathing practices, you can learn to kind of get into your body more, to calm your nervous system. There's a lot you can do at the conscious level. And that's for me where most voice training stays. And that's been most of my training from a voice perspective. But what I'm more interested in is unconsciously what's being expressed through your voice. And so this is really the pervasive vocal habits, the things that you don't really identify with and are maybe kind of confused by, for example. So maybe you are, you know, really successful in your career, but your voice sort of doesn't match how you feel about your business. So maybe your voice is kind of weak and quiet, but you feel like, you know, I know I'm really authoritative. I know what I'm doing. I'm really kind of confident in what I'm doing, but the voice doesn't reflect that. That's because there's something unconscious driving the voice. So if you just did some vocal exercises, and I've seen this so many times, and I include myself in this too, it's not going to change anything. You've got to address unconsciously what's driving the vocal habits when they're pervasive. So you know it's pervasive if you think, I always do this, I always speak fast, I always mumble, I always do XYZ. When it's more conscious and you have some sort of control over it, that's not what we're sort of more concerned by, because we can change that. It's the pervasive vocal habits. But I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about how you can start to kind of look into that, because by definition, these are unconscious. So you can't get there directly by an intellectual understanding. So again, I could do a whole live or 10 just on that topic. And then, so let's look now, how do we find vocal freedom? So we've looked at how we hold our voice back, which is really just unnecessary tension in the body, which is driven by the mind. How it impacts our voice, it will absolutely limit the strength, the power, the clarity, and the expression that you can access. You will feel heavily reliant on having to have a mic, and you'll probably feel quite a lot of anxiety when you come to speak, because you won't feel like you've really got any control over your voice and what's going to come out. So let's look first of all then, if we're talking about the 4 sort of stages to kind of a breaking free. And again, this is not something you do once and then that's it. This is a journey, but it does get easier, I promise you. So first of all, it's self-awareness, which kind of sounds obvious, but self-awareness from the point of view of the amount of people I work with that have never videoed themselves, listened to themselves. It's just that, they're just going by what they hear in their head or what someone else has said to them. So you really want to start videoing yourself. No one else has to see it. This is just for you. Start videoing yourself and notice, if you can, where do I hold tension? So when I speak, for example, are my shoulders up around my ears? Is my jaw really tight when I tense? When I speak, does my upper lip move? Like, is my face kind of frozen when I speak? Am I kind of braced and kind of in this defensive position when I speak? Or is there a kind of softness through my body? Does my face move? Is there animation in my face? Do my lips move? Is my jaw soft? Does my tongue move? Part of this is watching yourself, because I think it's really difficult when these patterns are habitual. But part of it is also learning to feel as well. So start to become more attuned with how your voice feels. So next time you're in a situation where you're feeling anxious, just start to notice, that's interesting, without judging yourself, without beating yourself up. Where am I feeling this tension? Where is it for you? Is it your chest? Is it your throat? Is it your tongue? I mean, I talk about the tongue a lot because, and I've had personally to do a lot of work on this myself. It's one of these muscles, because it's a big muscle, most of which we can't see, and it's directly linked to the larynx. Most people hold so much tension in their tongue, but they have no idea. And it's only when we start doing the work on the tongue, getting the tongue more engaged, more actively involved, they're like, oh, I didn't realize my tongue was basically having a sleep at the back of my throat. So for a lot of people, including myself, until you do the work, the tongue will probably naturally want to retract. And some accents favor that retraction of the tongue sound, that kind of sound is the tongue pulling back. So again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we want the tongue to be far more agile, far more engaged, bringing the tongue forward to drive the sound forward, to drive the power in the voice forward. If the tongue's always being pulled back, not only is it blocking your throat almost, but you're also sort of pulling the sound back. So I just wanted to give that as an example, because that is almost universal, including myself. And most singers will have to deal with tongue tension as well, because we do all this weird stuff with our tongue and we don't even realize. So that's just an example. So start to pay attention to, how is my voice feeling, particularly, when you are stressed or anxious, and watch yourself, record yourself. It doesn't matter what you say. I mean, I do these videos every week. So I watch myself back, and I basically do everything I'm telling you to do. So it's not just do as I say, not as I do. I literally do this myself. So that's the first one. So self-awareness, hugely important. Can't create any change without being aware in the first place. But I'm sure you know that already. So the next piece is around this sort of unconscious piece, this emotional piece. You know, my whole philosophy is the voice is an outer expression of our inner world. Now, I'm not talking about if you have, you know, a brief illness and you lose your voice and then your voice comes back, but where is your voice sitting as a default? Not, you know, because I've got hay fever at the moment, so my voice is a little bit swollen at the moment, and I keep blowing my nose, and it doesn't feel great. So I can hear in my voice there's a bit more swelling than there normally would be, but that I know isn't my sort of baseline. So what's your baseline voice? Where is your voice sitting on a day-to-day basis? That's what you want to look at. So one of the easiest ways to start to look at what's unconsciously driving my voice and my life, actually, the voice is very helpful for looking at more broadly what's going on in your life, is what voices trigger me. Now, when I say this, I mean it could be people that really irritate you. You know, is it that person that's always shouting and talking over people? Or is it the person that talks really quietly and you have to like, can you repeat that? Because I can't hear what you're saying. Now, I'm just giving you examples. It could be anything. Is it people that love the limelight and they're like, hi, everyone, you know, very over the top, that kind of American sort of stereotypical motivational speaker, like big, loud, strained voice? You know, what kind of person or voice triggers you, annoys you, frustrates you, irritates you? It kind of gets under your skin. You're like, I wish they'd just shut up. Or the other side of the fence, what kinds of voices do you love? What kinds of voices do you think, oh God, they sound so amazing. I would love to have their voice. Often people can name sort of actors and actresses that because obviously actors and actresses do a lot of training for their voice. So I've often had clients say, I love, you know, Colin Firth's voice or Hugh Grant's voice or whoever. So think about, are there voices that you love? And also, what are the voices that you hate? And start to think about what are the qualities of those voices. Because whatever you are perceiving in those people, good or bad, right or wrong, black, white, up, down, doesn't matter, is what you are rejecting or denying in your own voice on some level. So this is the first piece. So often, for example, a lot of the people that I work with are more on the introverted side. They struggle to get their voice out. They struggle to take up space. They are really triggered by people that love the sound of their own voice. I mean, it's just so fascinating. So start to think about that. And you can just journal about this or just start to become aware as you go through your day. And there will be themes, I guarantee it, for the people that you find irritating or the people that you love listening to. Okay, so that's number 2. Now, number 3 is more the practical side. So we've got to address the emotional piece. We've got to address the awareness piece because it's all kind of the same thing. But the physical side of it now is really important. The sort of the skill and the craft of speaking, like how do I actually optimally produce sound? It's not something we're taught unless you go to, you know, unless like me, you've studied voice from a very young age, you've had singing lessons, drama lessons, that type of thing. You probably won't be taught this. So you have to warm up your voice. And I know I say this all the time to people, and I mentioned it earlier, why you need to warm up your voice, because it helps you to access more agility and expression and vibrancy and energy in the voice. But it's amazing how many people don't do it. And it doesn't even have to be a big thing. It could be 30 seconds, a minute. I'm a big fan of using the straw to warm up your voice. However, what I'm going to say is I actually have a handout, a voice prep guide handout, which will take you through a number of different exercises in the 4 areas that you need to focus on. So literally it will be in the link below this video. It's free. You can download it right now, access it straight away. It's called Voice Prep Guide. In there, I take you through the 4 different stages. So number 1 is warming up the body. Again, you don't have to do like a 1-hour exercise class. This could just be some gentle movement through your shoulders, through your upper chest, like really just stretching the throat and the neck, getting some movement. So you've got to warm up the body or get some release through the body. Breath, hugely important, also going to be hindered by tension in the body. We want to deepen the breath to really allow a more stable base for the voice to be produced from. If the voice is high and shallow, because there's a lot of tension in your system, you're not going to have the power to sustain your voice. You're going to run out of air. You're just going to really struggle with stamina. So body, breath, vocal warm-ups, which is kind of what we're talking about here. And then the final piece is also the articulator warm-ups. So I spoke before about how we hold a lot of tension through our jaw, through our tongue, through our lips. So this handout will take you through the 4 stages: body, breath, articulators, and voice. And as I say, this might sound like a lot, but what you can do is you can just pick and choose a few that you like, and you can vary it, but you want to try and get into a habit, particularly if you've got a big meeting, presentation, speech, pitch, interview, whatever. Just doing something for a couple of minutes. Like even before I came on today, I was getting ready, and I know I'm a bit weird, admittedly, but I will just walk around the house making weird sounds. But you're once you get used to it, you'll be able to make weird sounds while you're putting your makeup on, or maybe not taking the dog for a walk, but I guess it depends on where you're taking the dog for a walk. But you get my drift, that you can actually start to incorporate this into your day-to-day life. But it's really, really important. It will make such a difference to your voice, to how you feel about your voice as well. So I think that's probably the easiest thing. Download that. The other part of this is that for each section, the body, breath, articulators, and voice, there's also a video at the bottom of each section, so that you have me guiding you as well. So you kind of know what you're doing if you don't quite understand the instructions. So that's that one. And finally, this is really what we're aiming for as a speaker, or as any voice user, actually, singers or speakers, is this idea of forward resonance. And what this means is the voice is forward in the mouth. So primarily we're feeling the sound around our mouth, maybe a little bit around our nose, but it's really in this part of our body that we're feeling the vibrations, which is also why I said earlier, you've got to really start to become really attuned to where you're feeling your voice, because a lot of people pull their voice back into their throat, but they don't realize it, because they're not used to the feeling of what my voice feels like when it's the back of my throat. But when the voice is forward, you will find you have far more control, strength, power, access to clarity, expression, than if the voice is sitting at the back of your throat. So this idea of forward resonance is really the fundamental to you accessing the greatest version of your voice. And this is where your voice will naturally amplify and the sound will naturally be enhanced. So coming back to the emotional piece for a second, unconsciously for lots of people, again, because people don't know they're doing it. So again, we're not beating ourselves up here. People will pull their voice back because they fear being heard. They fear being visible. They fear having their opinions out there. They fear maybe being judged, criticized, ridiculed, shamed, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, this is all rooted in our childhood. So we learn as we grow up, let me just pull my voice back. As long as I can basically get my needs met, does it really matter if my voice is sitting back here? But yes, it does, if you really want to access, your highest version of yourself and bring this highest version of your voice out into the world. It doesn't matter what you do, you still need your voice. It doesn't matter what career you're in, you need your voice. So this idea of forward resonance, naturally amplified, and enhances and really allows this tone to come out in a really clear, powerful way. So how would you know if your voice isn't resonant. So let's say you don't really have much awareness. I've talked about one already. So you feel like you're sort of almost swallowing your sound. Your voice is sort of being pulled back into your throat. So that would be the first one. Again, remember I'm saying this is your kind of baseline voice. So if you're sick, you're probably not, you might be doing this when you're sick, but I'm talking about your baseline voice. Where is your voice sitting on a day-to-day basis most of the time? So do you swallow your sound? Is there a lot of raspiness or croakiness or vocal fry that and that's a really extreme version, but there's a lot of people I see that have vocal fry when they speak as just a normal way of speaking. So it tells me the voices are back here. So again, raspiness, croakiness, vocal fry. Do you feel like you're swallowing your sound? Is there a lack of clarity in your voice? Most likely you're not forward. There's no forward resonance or limited forward resonance. Is there a lack of energy in your voice? A lack of power, a lack of strength? Again, if the voice is at the back of your throat, it's going to take a lot of effort to get it out. So if you do get your voice out, it's going to feel like you have to push it out with so much energy. And then all it does is it just sounds strained anyway. So do you clear your throat a lot? This is a big one. Sometimes we use throat clearing almost as like a nervous twitch, but sometimes we are genuinely clearing our throat. Again, if the voice is being pulled back, it's a really big sign that you need to get the voice forward if you're clearing your throat. Do you experience a lot of tiredness or fatigue with your voice? Is it always feeling tired? You get to the end of a meeting like, oh God, I can't speak to anyone. I need to just be in silence. So notice that. Do you find that at the end of the day, at the end of the week, you just have to have a break? Again, coming back to the warm-ups, if you're warming up your voice as well, you won't experience fatigue. I mean, I'd say you won't experience fatigue. Your voice might feel a bit tired, like when you go to the gym, you work your body out, but it's a good sort of tiredness. So definitely just start to notice that. And then finally, limited expression and vibrancy. Again, if the voice is sort of sitting at the back of the throat, it's really, very much about the voice is not forward. So I'm just reading a message here. Fear of bad breath affecting ourselves, of course. Yes, very much so. And actually on that point, so someone's just said fear of bad breath. That's very true. The other point I was going to make, so about 10 years ago, I had braces fitted and I had the big train tracks. And I remember it was so interesting because obviously I was very aware of this at the time, but I didn't want to open my mouth when I spoke. So I was talking to people like this because I was so embarrassed by these really ugly train tracks on my teeth. So it's true, some of that as well. And, and obviously if that's an issue, you probably need to go and get that looked at by a doctor. I knew for me with the train tracks that it was temporary, but I really notice, and actually people that don't like their teeth as well. So bad breath, if you don't like your teeth, people often really want to move their lips because they don't want to show their teeth. So I really resonate with that because I was exactly that person. I was so embarrassed by my teeth before I had them sort of straightened and etc. So yes, absolutely 100%. So what we're aiming for, as I say, we want to bring the sound forward. We want to feel the sound around our mouth and nose. So it's this sort of vibration around here primarily. And you do have to kind of get used to what that feels like. The reason this is so good, not only are we sort of bringing the sound forward, but we're allowing the vocal folds to actually vibrate fully, cleanly, and efficiently. So I spoke earlier about with tension in the voice, how they can't vibrate fully, cleanly, and efficiently because it's just being squished. So what forward resonance does is it allows them to get into this place of ease for speech. So therefore you can project more easily, you can get more clarity, it's going to feel better. So I'm gonna, at the end of this, I'm gonna share a video I did on forward resonance underneath where I go into more depth about this. But very simply, as a starting point, if you are thinking, actually, yeah, I know I pull my voice back for whatever reason, whether it's something cosmetic or emotional or whatever, what a really nice way to start to do this is put your hands over your mouth and your nose and just go, and see if you can feel the sound forward. Now, obviously, I can do this now without my hands. Another way to do this, which might sound really weird, but a lot of voice training is weird when you don't do it. This is what I've discovered. Most people think I'm slightly mad when they work with me, and I'm like, no, we all do this. All voice teachers do this weird stuff. Is actually to stick your tongue out, because then you can feel the vibration even more, because you'll get that sort of secondary feedback through the tongue. And then what you want to do is see if you can keep that resonance there. So obviously you're not going to like that, but can you now keep that forwardness in the voice? So mum, mum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and really start to bring your focus to your lips, to around your mouth as the place where you're driving the sound. A lot of people, and I totally get this, see their voices in their throat and they have to push my voice out from my throat. All that happens is you'll probably just pull your voice back into your throat. So start to see your voice is really at the end of your lips. Try this exercise, and make sure you feel the vibrations around your lips and your nose. If you need that guide, put your hands over your face while you practice this. And then from that place, start to practice counting or really, really short sentences like, my name is Anuska. Just start to kind of see if you can continue from that, and then say something really short. Keep it simple, keep it short while you're practicing. I also just want to say, with anything voice related, you can't do this once and then that's it. You have to practice this every day if you're serious. It doesn't have to be long. So I would say, if you could do this like 4 times a day for a minute, do it for 2 weeks, see what happens. Because I guarantee then things will start to shift. You'll start to kind of get this feeling of forwardness and you'll be like, actually, this does feel easier. So that's all I've got for you today. Now, I just want to mention before I go, there are many ways you can work with me. If you would like some quick feedback on your voice and are not sure if maybe that you are pulling your voice back, I do have a digital voice coach service. So for £79, you can send me an audio. All the links will be below or are below. And I will give you a personalized video back of what I'm hearing and some specific things for you. But also, as I mentioned at the start, this is, just working on the physical side is not enough. You've got to get to the emotional route. Our voice is so emotional. So my full coaching program is an 8-month private coaching investment. If you're interested in that, it is a big investment, but you are going to feel like a completely different person at the end. You can book a 30-minute voice consult below. I'd love to chat to you. It is life-changing. It will just change the way you view yourself, you view your voice, and you won't feel like you've got to kind of micromanage your voice. You won't feel like you have to kind of fake it till you make it. There'll just be a natural ease and confidence with the way you speak. The reason it's 8 months is because change, for most of us human beings, doesn't happen overnight. We've been stuck in conditioned patterns for maybe decades. So just having one session here and there is not going to do a lot. However, if that's where you are and you just want a little bit of advice, a little bit of help, feel free to send me an audio. All the links are below. But I hope you found this helpful. If you rewatch this and you've got any questions or comments you'd like to make, feel free to post them below. I will always respond to any questions as well. If you want to send me a private email or question, you can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message through LinkedIn, or you can actually just send me a message through my website, anuskataylor.com. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend if you're watching live, and I will see you next week, probably just for a normal video next week. Take care. Thank you.